evening on some new charges. This is your initial appearance. So what we're doing is we're talking about your release conditions and your next court dates. We're not going into the facts of your case at all. So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and there's a representative from the public defender's office seated next to you who can help you during this hearing. Now, looking at the file, I have received the state's recommendation. I note that they're asking for a $100,000 bond with pretrial services. Counsel for the state, did you wish to be heard further?
Your Honor, the only thing I would just note is the nature of the offense and also the nature of the pending case he has as well.
Did you wish to add anything?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd be asking for a much lower bond. He's already being held on a $50,000 bond that was imposed back in September on the 12th, so almost a month ago. He hasn't been able to post it. He doesn't have any violent priors. It looks like the least onerous conditions in his position would be about a $25,000 bond. So that's what we'd be asking for.
And I'm sorry, when did you say the bond had been imposed in the prior case?
I'm seeing it imposed when I wrote down the 12th of last month. I can double check. Sure.
That appears correct, Judge,
Okay.
per the pretrial services report, but just because he has another bond on another case doesn't take away from the seriousness of the current charges. These are separate allegations and conditions of release.
Well, Your Honor, the only reason I say that is if he's not able to meet that kind of bond, you know, he's not going to be able to meet $1 million. So I don't think that's necessary, even though the nature of the offense. Or 100,000, excuse me, $1 million.
All right, sir, what I'm going to do is I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. I'm going to hold you on a $7,500 cash or secured bond. If you are able to post that bond, you will be supervised by pretrial services. You're not to possess any alcohol or illegal drugs, possess no weapons. And if they have any monitoring or treatment that they want you to do, you're going to do that as well. Counsel, there's going to be some additional contact conditions. If you could go over that with Mr. Tincher. And your next court date, sir, is going to be a preliminary hearing. And that is going to be on October the 21st. And that's going to be at 1:30 in the afternoon. Sorry, just give me 1 second. My computer froze. All right, yeah, so that's your court date's going to be on October 21st, 2024 at 1:30 in the afternoon. Sir, if for some reason you're released from custody, you need to make sure you stay in contact with your attorney and pretrial services because that hearing can go forward without you and a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that's all for tonight. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, this is a Spanish interpreter. There were no Spanish speakers on the list, but I don't know if that's been verified.
Let me check with the jail. Jail, can you confirm whether we have any Spanish speakers or not? Sorry, jail, do we have any Spanish speakers?
No, Your Honor, we do not.
All right, you're excused, Madam Interpreter. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
And Audrey, I don't know if Guerrero is gonna refuse again, but I am recommending pretrial release on him.
Understood.
He is refusing, Your Honor.
He's refusing? All right. Is Mr. Diaz close to coming up, or we can jump ahead and handle Mr. Guerrero?
I will
Who
be here.
refused? Who refused? Guerrero refused.
Let me just find his file real quick.
I think we could probably just handle them, Your Honor.
Yeah.
They're not back yet.
All right, so let me open his file. All right. So in this case, this is his scheduled initial appearance. I note that he has refused transport. According to my notes, and counsel weigh in if my information is incorrect, it looks like he was scheduled
This
yesterday.
Diaz. We just need a second on him.
Yes.
Okay.
It looks like
Sorry,
he
Your
was-
Honor.
That's fine. It looks like he was initially scheduled on the 10th at 7 in the evening, and then this morning at 9, and he refused both times. I'm going to proceed since he continues to voluntarily absent himself from these proceedings. I do see the state's recommendation of pretrial services. Counsel, I'm assuming that you agree with that?
Yes, I do, Your Honor, but I would like to be heard on probable cause for the record.
You may.
So I'm looking at this statement and it looks like the interim complaint's about 2 sentences long, 3 sentences. It doesn't give any identifying features. There's no indication how they identified who this person was. There's no indication he was even arrested that day. So there's no presumption there that they arrested the person who did this. There's also no indication as to how these pills were known to be M30 counterfeit fentanyl. Normally there's a statement based on my training and experience. I knew these to be counterfeit fentanyl, which is how I knew they're illegal. There's none of that there. So I don't think there's enough probable cause for a for sale charge and to show that this individual was the one who committed it.
State, do you have any response?
Your Honor, they gave his name, date of birth, and they're alleging that he sold M30, quote, counterfeit oxycodone containing fentanyl narcotic pills to an undercover officer. So probable cause is a very low burden at this stage, and they pretty much identify him, his name, date of birth, and that he sold those pills to undercovers.
All right, I am going to find that there's probable cause to proceed at this time, given the alleged charges and the standard that we're required to meet at a hearing like this. I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent Mr. Guerrero. I'm going to order that he not possess any alcohol or illegal drugs. He will be released to pretrial services, and he will be required to comply with any directions and monitoring that they put in place. He's not to return to the incident location. And his preliminary hearing date is going to be October the 28th at 1:30 in the afternoon. Oh, 10:30? Understood. Okay, so thank you. So his preliminary hearing, scratch that October 28th date, is going to be October 31st, and that will be, that's still at 1:30? Okay, October 31st at 1:30. And the defendant is required to be there. If he doesn't, a warrant can issue for his arrest. All right, so we can go ahead and move back to the order. I believe we had Mr. Diaz next.
Are you ready for Diaz?
She called him.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your full name?
Christian Alan Diaz de Leon.
All right, sir, you are here this evening for, it looks like, some new charges out of Tucson City Court. And this is going to be your initial appearance and your arraignment on those charges. Sir, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. Additionally, you have the right to be present at any and all court hearings. However, if you fail to appear, those hearings can go forward in your absence. That includes any scheduled trials. If you are convicted and if a sentencing hearing is set, if you fail to appear at sentencing, then you are running the risk of also losing your rights to a direct appeal. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so the charges that you currently have, it looks like threats and intimidation, domestic violence offense, a disorderly conduct, also a DV, looks like also theft by control. And I also note, it looks like you were recently placed on probation, also out of Tucson City Court. So what I'm going to do, sir, this evening is I'm going to hold you on a $1,500 cash or secured bond. I'm going to order that you are not to have any contact with the victim in this case. That's Cecilio Astroga. You are not to return to his residence. I'm going to appoint the city public defenders to represent you. And you are going to have a video review date of October 18th, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon. And that, sir, is if you're still in custody. If you are able to post bond, then your court date is going to be November 25th, 2024 at 9 in the morning. And don't worry about these dates. You're going to get paperwork that has both of these dates included on it. Do you understand all those conditions, sir?
So we're posting charges on the following, ma'am?
I'm sorry, sir?
So we're posting charges on all the following charges, and that's going to be reconvened at which date, Your Honor, ma'am?
So you are going to have a video court hearing on October 28th at 1:45. I also note that it looks like you're currently being held on a bond in a felony matter. So if you're still in custody on 10/28, the jail will make sure that you are either transported to your hearing or that you are brought to a courtroom like this so you can participate in court virtually. If for some reason you post bond, you're released from custody, then your hearing will be October 25th. Okay, sir?
All right, ma'am. I was just curious. As far as these other charges, these weren't mentioned in, as far as last time I was in here and I was released on probation. I just was curious. These are new charges you have since last time I've been placed in custody, madam?
That is correct.
That's what I'm asking.
That is correct.
All righty. And then we're going to proceed with all of these charges on which date again, ma'am? I'm so sorry.
You're going to get paperwork with that court date, sir. It's going to be October 28th, 2024. That's all. Have a good night.
All righty. Paperwork for those on the 28th. Thank you.
Thanks, let's go.
Good evening, ma'am. Can I get your full name, please?
Anita Lisa Carrillo Perry.
All right, ma'am. We are seeing you this evening on some matters out of Pima County Justice Court. It looks like there are some new charges, but it looks like there's also some warrants that were issued in some older cases. As to the new charges, it looks like you have shoplifting and possession of drug paraphernalia. And in all of your cases, ma'am, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, however, not necessarily at court expense. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about your release conditions in all of these matters. So starting with the cases that you have warrants on. In one of them, it looks like you're facing domestic violence, disorderly conduct charges, and Judge Roberts.
Can we talk to my lawyer? Because I talked to my lawyer and like last month and I got all my cases dismissed.
All right,
I
ma'am.
got time served for that.
And I don't know anything about that, ma'am. All I have in front of me is warrant paperwork indicating that you were picked up on warrants in 2 outstanding cases. My advice to you, if you do have an
Are they
attorney,
misdemeanors or are they felonies?
these are misdemeanors out of Pima County Justice Court.
Then that's not right because my lawyer told me that I have no more misdemeanors. They even told me not to come back.
And who's your defense attorney?
His name is David Myers.
All right, ma'am, what I'm going to do is I'm
I even
going
got
to,
paperwork on it.
I understand, ma'am. So what I'm going to do, the warrants have already been served. I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. Your next court date is going November the 12th. At 8:30 in the morning. And you are not to commit any further acts of domestic violence. It looks like David Mize has already been appointed to represent you. And so that's one of your justice court cases. Let me move on to your other ones. And your other case, I note that it looks like David Mize is appointed to represent you. That court date is also going to be November the 12th at 8:30 in the morning. I'm going to release you on your promise to appear in that case as well. And in both of those cases, I do see that they are domestic violence related cases. You are to commit no further acts of domestic violence. You're not to have any contact with any alleged victims. My advice to you is make sure you get in contact with Mr. Mize if there is any confusion, then you need to get that straightened out so this doesn't keep happening. And then as to your new charge, and this is the shoplifting case, I will release you once again on your promise to appear. I will go ahead and appoint Mr. Mize to represent you on this case as well, since he's your attorney on the other 2 cases. You are not to have any contact with any alleged victims. You're not to return to the incident location. That's where the shoplifting offense is alleged to have occurred. You're also not to possess any alcohol or illegal drugs. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And on that case, you will also have a court date and we'll keep them all together. It will be November the 12th at 8:30. Just give me 1 second so I can finish your paperwork. All right, ma'am, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Thank you.
Next. Next.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your name?
Dominguez.
All right, sir. We're seeing you this evening. It looks like you have new charges that will be assigned to Pima County Justice Court. It looks like you also have some cases out of Tucson City Court that we'll get to in a second. So, sir, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, however, not necessarily at court expense. Do you understand, sir?
Yes.
All right, so today we are talking about your release conditions on the JP court matter. And what I'm going to do, sir, is I am going to release you on your promise to appear. Your next court date will be November the 12th at 8:30 in the morning. And that will be in front of Judge Kendrick Wilson over at Justice Court. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to have any contact with any alleged victims, and you're not to return to the incident location. Do you understand, sir? I'd say yes or no.
Yes.
All right, sir, that's all for this evening. Your excuse, or no, actually, before I excuse you, let me look at your city court matters, but your city court matters, you are looking at, it looks like quite a few cases. And the charges you're facing in city court involve prescription drug charges, criminal trespass, possession of drug paraphernalia, unlawful possession of a narcotic drug, criminal trespass in the 3rd degree, and also several failures to appear. Sir, what we're going to do is we're going to do your initial hearing or your initial appearance and your arraignment as to these charges. So in addition to the 2 rights I told you about before, the right to remain silent and the right to have an attorney, you also have a right to appear at any and all court proceedings. However, if you fail to appear, those proceedings can go forward without you. Do you understand, sir? If that happens, a warrant can issue for your arrest. You also have the right to a trial, at which point the prosecution would have to produce evidence and basically try to convince either a judge or a jury that you should be convicted. You also have the right to use the court subpoena power to compel any witnesses should you desire on your own behalf. Now, when I mentioned that hearings can go forward in your absence, that includes sentencing. If you are convicted and if you also fail to appear at the time of sentencing, you run the risk of losing your direct appeal rights. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, sir. So what we're going to do today because of all the prior failure to appears and the number of cases, sir, I am going to hold you on a $500 cash or secured bond. In all of these cases, you are not to have any contact with any listed victims. You are not to return to any incident locations. You are not to possess or consume alcohol or illegal drugs. And I'm going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you. Your next court date, sir, if you remain in custody, is going to be October 18th, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon. However, if you are able to post bond, if you're released from custody, then your court date will be November 12th, 2024 at 9 o'clock, and you'll get paperwork with all of this information. Do you understand that, sir?
Yeah.
All right, sir, that's all for this evening. You're excused. Good evening, ma'am. Can I get your full name?
Mr. in the city of Martin.
Oh, no, I found it. Thank you. I'm sorry, did you say Miss Martin?
Yes.
All right. So ma'am, we're seeing you this evening on a couple of matters. So it looks like you have some theft charges that are pending out of South Tucson City Court. Ma'am, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, however, not necessarily at court expense. I do note that it looks like you are also on probation out of Marana court. And jail, can you confirm that there's a probation hold out of Marana?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am. So you've currently got a hold. So regardless of what we do on this case tonight, you're not going to be released from custody because of that Marana probation hold. What I'm going to do is I'm going to note on your paperwork that you do have that other case pending so that South Tucson City Court knows where you're at. So what I'm going to do today, ma'am, is I am going to release you on your promise to appear on this particular case. Your next court date is going to be October 29th, 2024, and that's going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning in South Tucson City Court. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, ma'am. So you're going to get paperwork with all of this information. Once again, your court date's going to be October 29th at 10 a.m. and that's going to be at South Tucson City Court. Do you have any questions?
No, not right now.
All right, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Thank you. Thanks, ma'am.
Questions?
Good evening, sir. Can I get your name?
My name is Jorge Montijo Vargas.
All right, Mr. Montijo, it looks like you're here this evening for an initial appearance on DUI charges out of Sahuarita Municipal Court. Sir, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, however, not necessarily at court expense. So, sir, what I'm going to do this evening is I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. Your next court date is going to be November the 5th, 2024, and that's going to be at 8:30 in the morning.
November 25th.
Your Honor, he has a superior court hold.
Thank you for that. You said Superior Court?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir. So what we're doing, the release conditions that I'm imposing for your DUI case is not going to, you're not going to get out of custody because you've got that felony hold. Do you understand?
What can I do for that felony hold?
So you're going to have to talk to your attorney in the felony matter. That's something that has to be handled through a different court. That's not something I can handle this evening. And if you have any questions, there is a member from a representative of the Public Defender's Office seated next to you. I'm sure she would be happy to answer any questions you may have. But
Thank you.
now what I'm going to do on your paperwork is I'm going to note for the Sahuarita folks that you do have that felony hold and you may still be in custody. So that way they know where you're at. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Finish the hearing first and then Is he done? Oh,
This second. All right, sir. So once again, your court date for Sahuarita is going to be November the 5th at 8:30. And that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Thank you.
Vargas? Or you, Warner? Oh, yeah, you're good.
Good evening, ma'am. Can I get your full name?
Anissa Warner?
All right, ma'am, we're seeing you on matters out of Tucson City Court, but it also looks like you have a warrant out of Pima County Justice Court. So ma'am, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, however, not necessarily at court expense. And we're going to start with your Pima County Justice Court matters. So I note has been issued in that case. So I'm going to go ahead and quash the warrant. Now, ma'am, I am going to release you on your promise to appear. Your next court date is going to be November the 12th. And that will be at 8:30 in the morning. And that will be in front of Judge Roberts. Or actually, no, scratch that. That'll be in front of Judge Foster. So, ma'am, you have to make sure you make that court date, because if you don't make it, another warrant's going to issue. Depending on the nature of the hearing, that hearing can go forward without you. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Now, also with regards to that shoplifting case, I'm going to order that you have no contact with any alleged victims, that you not go to the incident location. So that is where the shoplifting is alleged to have occurred. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, ma'am. So we're also going to talk about some city court matters that you have. And it looks like you have a few different cases involving charges relating to criminal trespass, shoplifting, resisting arrest, possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of a narcotic drug, prescription drug violation, but also failure to appear. Ma'am, we're also going to do your arraignment on these matters this evening. And so what that means is that we're going to go over some additional rights that you have. I told you before, you had the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. You also have the right to be present for any and all court proceedings held in your case. However, should you fail to appear, those proceedings can go forward without you and a warrant can issue for your arrest. That includes trial. Now, if you are convicted and you also fail to appear at the time of sentencing, you run the risk of losing your appellate rights. Do you understand? You also have the right to have a trial in this matter and have the prosecution prove the case against you. You also have the right to use the government's subpoena power to basically compel witnesses on your behalf should you choose to do so. Now, what we're going to do in your city court matters, ma'am, is I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not to have any contact with any of the victims listed in any of your cases. You're also not to return to any of the incident locations. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
And your next court date, ma'am, in those matters is going to be November the 12th, 2024, and that will be 2:30 in the afternoon. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
All right, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your full name, please?
Daniel David Witt.
Sorry, Mr. Witt. Just give me 1 second, sir, so I can get your file. All right, sir, we are seeing you on a number of cases out of Tucson City Court. And looks like you have a couple of cases pending in front of Judge Blue, where you missed some court dates. And it also looks like you have some new charges. So the new charges, you've been charged with criminal trespass in the 3rd degree. And in your older cases, you're facing criminal trespass charges, failure to appear charges, and also possession of drug paraphernalia charges. Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, however, not necessarily at court expense. You also have the right to be present for any and all court proceedings. However, should you fail to show for court, those hearings can go forward without you. That includes trial. Do you understand, sir? And if you fail to appear, another warrant can issue for your arrest. Now, if you are convicted and you fail to appear for sentencing, you run the risk of losing your direct appeal rights. Do you understand, sir?
Yes.
You also have the right to a trial in your various cases. And at trial, the prosecution would be required to prove their case against you. You would also have the ability to subpoena any witnesses to testify on your behalf should you desire to do so. Now, sir, what I'm going to do in these various cases I'm going to go ahead and hold you on a $250 bond. And that will be cash or secured. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. You're going to have a video review date on October 21st, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon, and that's going to be with Judge Blue. I'm going to order that you not possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, not have any contact with any listed victims, not return to any listed incident locations. And just give me 1 second, sir. All right, sir. So that $250 bond I mentioned, that's going to be as to the new charges. Now, as to your older cases, those are also assigned to Judge Blue. I'm also going to set a video review hearing, and that's going to be October 21st, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon. And otherwise, on that case, I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. Do you understand, sir?
Yes.
All right, sir, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Your Honor, we're gonna go out of order. Race will be done last. Noah,
For which one?
for Noah Reese, you will be done last.
Understood. Thank you, Jail.
Thank you, ma'am. Lawrence Taylor,
Hello.
Good evening, ma'am. Can I get your full name, please?
Taylor Lawrence.
All right, ma'am, we are seeing you this evening on charges of child or vulnerable adult abuse. And it looks like those are pending felony charges. Ma'am, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you in this matter. So what we're doing this evening is we're talking about your next court dates, and we're also talking about release conditions. I have read the probable cause statement and the state's recommendation. I note that the state is recommending pretrial services release. I am inclined to go with that recommendation. However, did you have anything you wish to add, sir?
I would just add no contact unless DCS is involved and they authorize contact, Your Honor.
All right. Defense, did you wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to be heard on probable cause.
You may.
In this interim complaint, it doesn't appear there was any indication as to how the law enforcement officer knew she was intoxicated. Furthermore, I don't see any allegations of child abuse that match the statute. All she's accused of doing is standing outside at about 6 a.m. barefoot with her 2 children. It doesn't say she's in the street. Mountain southbound is not particularly, it has a sidewalk. There's no indication she wasn't on the sidewalk. We don't know the distance to where she was coming. She could be right outside. I'm just really struggling to see any sort of child abuse crime here that rises to a felony. And so I'm asking that you don't find probable cause.
State, did you wish to be heard?
Your Honor, I'm very familiar with 133623B1. It doesn't require an actual injury. It requires proving that, at least how the statute's written, that if somebody has care and custody, i.e. these children specifically, and they're placed in a circumstance, not that they were actually harmed, that could, let me give you the exact verbiage here, in a situation where the health of the child is endangered. So here we have an individual, whether or not the intoxication plays a role, is walking up a public roadway at before 6 a.m. Barefoot, a 4 and an 8-year-old up a public roadway. Now, the statute doesn't require that under circumstances that it puts their life in jeopardy. All the statute requires under the B is under circumstances other than those likely to produce death or serious physical injury. So walking up a public roadway in itself, bare feet with young children, could endanger their health.
All right.
Your Honor. Sorry, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say the statute they specifically charged her under is doing it intentionally or knowingly. And again, I just don't think this meets that level.
All right, looking at the information in the probable cause statement, thank you, counsel, both sides, for your arguments. I am going to find probable cause at this time. There are some statements that she made that make it sound as though this was intentional, and also the other facts I think do fit the statute. Now, what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to find probable cause. As to release conditions, I'm going to release you, ma'am, to pretrial services. You're to comply with any monitoring or treatment that they direct. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. At this time, ma'am, you are not to have any contact with the minor victims in this case. I know that they're your children, but for right now, no contact. Now, that's something that your attorney can work out and perhaps file a motion in the future. However, that's something that any court would want more information as to whether or not there's any DCS involvement or any other restrictions that need to be put in place. That's not information I have tonight, so I'm not comfortable allowing contact. Now, let's see here. Your next court date, ma'am, is going to be a preliminary hearing, and that's going to be October 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. Now, that date may change, so stay in contact with your attorney, stay in contact with pretrial services, because even if it changes, you still need to make any future court dates. If you don't, a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand? All right, thank you, ma'am. That's all for tonight. You're excused. Oh, I have not. Thank you for that.
What's the anything else? Okay. Evans, Tommy.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your full name, please?
Yes,
All right, sir. And is that the third?
ma'am.
All right, sir. So we are seeing you this evening on charges relating to domestic violent aggravated harassment. And these are felony charges. Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. There is also a member from that office seated next to you for the purposes of this hearing who can assist you. Now, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about release conditions, and we are going to talk about your future court dates. I have read the probable cause statement. I have read the pretrial services recommendation. I have also seen the state's bond recommendation. I note that the state was requesting a $30,000 bond with pretrial services. State, did you wish to be heard any further?
I would just note, Judge, he's pending a trial on October 28th for a violent misdemeanor DV offense involving the same victim. And based on the nature of the harassment prior to this trial and the allegations, the high bond is appropriate.
Defense counsel, did you wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd be asking for a lower bond in this case. He doesn't have any prior convictions. He's verified to have lived in Tucson the last 13 years, so he has ties to the community. He also has full-time employment, and it was verified that he does not live with the victim. So given those factors, Your Honor, we'd be asking for a $10,000 bond.
All right, sir, I'm going to hold you on a $20,000 cash or secured bond based on the information I'm seeing from all those reports I mentioned before. If you post bond, you will be supervised by pretrial services. You must comply with any directives they give you. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You are not to possess any firearms. And you are not to have any contact whatsoever with the victim in this case. And sir, I can't stress enough what no contact means. No contact means no contact. That means no phone calls, no third party, nothing direct. That means no text messages, no social media messages, nothing. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir. So once again, your preliminary hearing is going to be October 21st at 1:30 in the afternoon. If you are released from custody, make sure you stay in contact with pretrial services and with your attorney because that date may change. You are still required to be present. If you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right, sir, that's all for this evening. You're excused. Good evening, sir. Can I get your name, please?
Stephen Daniel Kramer, Your Honor.
All right, sir. So we're seeing you this evening on felony domestic violence charges involving aggravated assault, burglary, kidnapping, aggravated harassment. Now, sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. There's a member from their office seated next to you who can assist you with this hearing. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so tonight we're just talking about your next court dates and we're talking about your conditions of release. Oh, and I also see, in addition to the charges I listed previously, it looks like there's also an alleged charge of attempted escape in the 3rd degree. Now, I have read the pretrial services write-up. I have also read the probable cause statement and the state's recommendation. I note that the state is requesting a $75,000 bond with pretrial services. State, did you wish to be heard further?
Your Honor, I would just note his violent misdemeanor DV prior. He's on a violent felony DV probation involving the same victim. I would just note the lethality statistic behind these types of offenses, and it was a very vicious attack when the victim simply had a friend who was visiting her over, and when she opened the door, it was a very brutal attack of the victim. So we believe, just based on the facts and his probation status involving the same victim, the high bonds appropriate.
Defense, did you wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. So Mr. Kramer does have housing away from the victim. He was on probation. He lives with his mother. It sounds like he was doing well on probation. I actually represented him on the felony that he's on probation for, so I would have gotten word by now if he violated. He's been on since March 15th, 2024. So he's been doing well for 7 months. So I think that is commendable. He has full-time employment. He's only scoring a 2 on the FTA scale, a 3 on the NCA scale, and he's a lifelong Tucson resident. We don't have all the facts in this case, so these are all allegations based on limited information. So given those factors, Your Honor, we'd be asking for a $25,000 bond, which is more aligned with his financial conditions.
All right, sir, I'm going to hold you on a $7,500 cash or secured bond. If you are able to post that bond, you will be monitored by pretrial services, and you have to comply with any directives they give. Additionally, you are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not to possess any firearms. And jail, can you confirm that there's currently a probation hold in his other matter?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so in addition to the conditions I've already listed, you're not to have any contact whatsoever with either victim in this case. Sir, no contact means no contact. I don't know if you heard me describe it to another individual. That means no phone, no third party, nothing direct, no social media. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if I didn't mention it, I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. And once again, your preliminary hearing is going to be October 21st at 1:30 in the afternoon. If you are released from custody, sir, you need to stay in contact with your defense attorney and with pretrial services because that date may change. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Yes.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your first name?
Good evening, Your Honor. Armando Manuel Lopez.
All right, sir, we're seeing you this evening on some charges. It looks like they stem out of an investigation by Saurita. These are felony charges involving second degree burglary, criminal trespass, theft, both at the felony and the misdemeanor level. And I do note there also appears to be a conspiracy charge as to this case, and counsel for both sides, just to alert you, I do have some questions and concerns about probable cause as to that specific charge for this defendant. Now, sir, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and there is a member from their office seated next to you who can help you with this hearing tonight. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so tonight we are going to be talking about your future court dates, and we're also going to be talking about release conditions. So, counsel both sides, my concern with the conspiracy charges, I didn't see anything in the probable cause statement that specifically relates to him having somebody that he was basically in cahoots with. I do note that there's another case involving a nearly identical probable cause statement. However, the information in that statement is not in this one. State, did you wish to be heard?
No, and I caught that as well, Judge, so nothing to argue against as it relates to that.
And defense, I'm assuming you have no objection if I decline that particular charge at this time.
No objection.
All right, sir. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to talk about your release conditions. I have looked at the PC statements. I've also looked at the pretrial services workup, and I have seen the state's recommendation. It looks like the state is recommending pretrial services release. I'm inclined to follow that recommendation. However, did either counsel wish to be heard further?
I don't have anything to add to the recommendation.
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir. So I'm going to release you to pretrial services. You need to comply with any directives they may give you once you get into contact with them. Your next court date is going to be October 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. Stay in contact with your attorney and pretrial services because that date could move. And if it moves, you're still responsible for making it to court. Do you understand? And if you,
Yes, Your Honor.
and if you don't appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand?
Yes.
In addition to being monitored by pretrial services, you're not to have any contact with the alleged victims. You're also not to return to any of the alleged incident locations. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so that's all for this evening, sir. You're excused.
Next. Oh,
Good evening, sir. Can I get your full name?
Rainer McElvenna Molina.
All right, sir, we're seeing you this evening. It looks like you've got some new charges pending out of a Sarita investigation. These are felony charges. And the specific counts involve second degree burglary, first degree criminal trespass, theft at both the misdemeanor and the felony level. And there appears to also be a facilitation to commit second degree burglary. Sir, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I will appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Or actually at this point, counsel, I know we appointed the public defender's office in the other case. It looks like they're the same case. So I will appoint, would we just do legal defenders then? I'm going to appoint the legal defender's officer to represent you. However, for tonight's hearing, the attorney seated next to you can assist you with any questions. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I have read the probable cause statement. I've also read the pretrial services workup and the state's recommendation. They are recommending pretrial services release. I am inclined to follow that recommendation. Does either counsel wish to be heard further?
Nothing further from the state, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, I am pretrial services. Your next court date is going to be October 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. Stay in contact with your legal defender. Also stay in contact with pretrial services because if that date changes, you still need to appear. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if you fail to appear, proceedings can go forward without you, and a warrant could also issue for your arrest. I'm going to order that you comply with any monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services, that you not have any contact with any of the alleged victims, that you not go to any of the alleged incident locations. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and once again, your next court date is going to be October 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's all for tonight. You're excused. Good evening, ma'am. Can I get your full name, please?
Laura Marie Oakman.
All right, ma'am. This evening, we're seeing you on felony charges involving possession of drug paraphernalia and also possession of a dangerous drug. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney. Now, ma'am, I have reviewed some information provided by the state. It looks like they are filing a motion to dismiss without prejudice at this time. Counsel, is that still correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, what that means is that the state is not proceeding with charges right now. However, they could file charges in the future. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, so what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to order that the charges be dismissed and that you be released from custody. Do you have any questions?
No.
All right, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Thank you.
Your Honor, it's COR or pretrial services?
Yeah.
On this case is being dismissed, so we don't have grounds to hold her.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So,
Good evening, sir. Could I get your full name, please?
Robert Angel Pinellas Jr.
All right, Mr. Pinellas, I am seeing you this evening on some new felony charges. It looks like shoplifting and possession of drug paraphernalia. Sir, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney to represent you. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office, and there's a representative from their office seated next to you who can assist you with this evening's hearing. Do you understand? So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about release conditions, and we're going to talk about your next court date. Now, I have looked at the interim complaint, the pretrial services recommendation, and also the recommendation from the state. I note that the state, it looks like you're recommending pretrial services release.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. I am inclined to follow that recommendation. Madam Defense Counsel, did you have anything you wish to add?
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, I'm going to release you to pretrial services. You are to follow any recommendations for treatment or monitoring that they put in place. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not to have any contact with any alleged victims, and you're not to go to the incident locations or basically where this is alleged to have occurred. Do you understand? All right, sir, your next court date is going to be October 31st, 2024 at 1:30 in the afternoon. Make sure you stay in contact with your attorney and with pretrial services because that date may change. And if it changes, you're still responsible for being there. You understand?
Yes.
And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand that?
Okay.
All right, sir, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
Taylor.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your name, please?
Stephen Taylor.
All right, sir. So it looks like we are seeing you on a few different cases. There's new felony charges out of Pima County Superior Court. It also looks like you have some Tucson City Court matters, and it looks like you have a pending case in Marana. So, sir, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to have an attorney on your felony charges. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the felony case first, and then we're going to move on to Marana and the city court matters. I have seen a note from the state's attorney that the state is moving to dismiss the felony drug charges against you without prejudice. Is that still the case, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, that would be the case. So the only thing that remains is his new misdemeanor citation, the 4 Tucson City Court warrants, and the Marana warrant that would need to be addressed.
Thank you, sir. And defense counsel, I'm assuming you don't have any objection to the dismissal motion?
Oh, Your Honor.
All right. So, sir, what I'm going to do on the pending felony charges is I'm going to order that those be dismissed without prejudice. Now, what that means is that the state could move to file these charges at some point in the future. All right. So that it's not that they're going away forever. They might, but they could come back. You understand? I need a verbal yes or no, sir.
Yes.
All right, sir. Now looking at your Marana matter.
Do you know their information? Their claims?
So your Marana matter, it looks like you have 10 shoplifting charges. Sorry, whoever's speaking back there, could you keep it down?
Who's talking?
Sorry, it's me.
Oh, sorry.
All right, sir, you do have that pending Marana City Court matter. And sir, what I'm going to do on that case is I'm going to hold you on a $250 cash or secured bond. And that's based on information I'm seeing in the pretrial services workup regarding your failure to appear history. You're going to have a court date of October the 14th. It looks like that's going to be, let me just verify something. So it's going to be on October 14th at 12 p.m. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not to have any contact with any alleged victims. You're also not to go to the alleged incident location. Do you understand?
Yes.
And then I'm going to appoint you an attorney. And I'm going to appoint Janet Altschuler to represent you. And you're going to get some paperwork that will have her contact information so you can get a hold of her. Do you understand?
Thank you.
All right, and once again, your court date on that Miranda matter is going to be October 14th at noon. So now we're going to talk about your city court matters. All right, and it looks like you have a number of different cases that were originally set for arraignments, but it doesn't look like you actually ever made your arraignment hearings. So the various charges you're looking at, sir, involve criminal trespass in the 3rd degree, possession of drug paraphernalia, prescription drug violations, and it looks like also failures to appear. Sir, in addition to the rights I told you about before, the right to remain silent and the right to, basically the right to remain silent, you also have the right to an attorney, however, not necessarily at court expense. You also have the right to be present at any and all court dates. However, if you fail to appear, those proceedings can go forward without you and a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand? I need a verbal yes or no, sir.
I said yes, sorry.
Okay. Now, if you fail to appear at the time, you do have a right to have a trial and have the prosecution basically prove the charges against you. You also have the right to subpoena witnesses on your own behalf should you desire to do so. If you are convicted at trial and sentencing is set, if you fail to appear at the time of sentencing, you run the risk of losing your direct appeal rights. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right, sir. So what we're going to do this evening is I'm going to hold you on a $250 cash bond in all of your city court matters. You're going to have a video review on October 18th, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon. If you bond out of custody, you're going to have a court date of November 13th, 2024 at 9 o'clock in the morning. Do you understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll get paperwork with all of that information. Your cases, it looks like they are assigned to Judge Hale. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not to have any contact with any of the alleged victims in your matters. You are also not to return to any of the listed incident locations. And I will appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you. Do you understand all of that, sir?
Yes.
All right, sir, that's all for this evening. You're excused.
We're gonna have a bunch of paperwork for you, but your felony got dismissed. So it'll be on your paperwork. Yep, you got misdemeanor holds.
Next.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your name, please?
No worries.
All right, sir, give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up your file here. All right, sir, we're seeing you this evening on some new felony charges involving prohibited possessing a firearm during a felony narcotics offense, possession of narcotics, and possession of drug paraphernalia. Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the legal defender's office to represent you. There is an attorney seated next to you who is from a different office who can assist you with any questions during this hearing. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about your next court dates. We're also going to talk about release conditions. So I have reviewed the probable cause statement, the pretrial services workup, and I've also seen the state's recommendation. Looks like the state is requesting a $7,500 bond with pretrial services if he's released. State, did you wish to be heard further?
Your Honor, he has a couple priors. He served 9 years, 3 months for an armed robbery. He's very well aware that he shouldn't have. At least what's concerning how the complaint reads, it almost gives the picture that he has his firearm with him as he's likely in the process of using, which presents its own, basket of danger. So we believe the $7,500 bond with pretrial is appropriate.
All right. Defense counsel, did you wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. We're actually going to be asking for his release to pretrial supervision. I understand the state's concerns. However, this is noted as a non-violent offense by pretrial. He also has, well, he does have, he was in prison for 9 years. That was in 2019 that he got released, and he hasn't picked up anything since. So he's been doing well, other than that one paraphernalia misdemeanor. He doesn't currently have employment, but he does have family. His parents and his daughter are in the area. He knows their contact information. He can stay there. So that's where he would go if he was released. So given those factors, Your Honor, we're asking to give him a chance on pretrial. I'm looking at his prior history. I don't see that he ever didn't do well on pretrial. It looks like he was released a long time ago. So we're asking to give him a chance on that in this case.
All right, I'm going to order, sir, that you be held on a $5,000 cash or secured bond. If you post that bond, you're going to be supervised by pretrial services. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are to participate in any monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. You are not to possess any firearms or weapons. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir. So your next court date is going to be October the 21st at 1:30 in the afternoon. If you are released from custody, you need to stay in contact with your attorney and with pretrial services because that date might change. And if it changes, you still need to be there or a warrant can issue. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir. That's all for this evening. You're excused.
Do you have that misdemeanor he needs to be seen on?
Oh, he does. Thank you, counsel. He does have city court. So, sir, let's go ahead and talk about your city court case. So in city court, it looks like you have a case where you failed to appear at the time of arraignment involving prescription drug violation charges and drug paraphernalia charges. So in addition to the rights I told you previously, the right to remain silent and the right to have an attorney, although not necessarily at court expense, you also have the right to be present at any and all hearings held in your case. If you are not present, a warrant can issue for your arrest and those hearings can go forward without you. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that includes trial. You do have a right to have a trial, at which point the prosecution would have to basically prove the charges against you. You would also have the power to subpoena witnesses on your own behalf should you desire to do so. And that trial could also go forward without you if you fail to appear. If you are set for sentencing and if you fail to appear at the time of sentencing, you run the risk of losing your direct appeal rights. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir. So I'm going to note in this case, sir, I'm going to note on your paperwork in this case that you're being held on felony charges. I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. And just give me 1 second. All right, sir, if you are still in custody on October 18th, you will have a hearing that day, October 18th at 1:45 in the afternoon, and that will be with Judge Maldonado over at Tucson City Court. If you post bond and are released from custody, then you will have a court date of November 7th, 2024 at 2:30 in the afternoon. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir, so you are going to be, as I mentioned, you're going to be released on your city court matter. And as a condition of your release, you're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Do you understand?
So
All right, that's all for tonight, sir. You're excused. All right, is that everyone? I think that's everyone on my list.
Everyone, Your Honor.
All right,
That's everyone.
thank you, jail. Thank you, counsel. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
Your Honor. Have a great night.
Good night.